Welcome to Behind the Screen, a podcast series from BreastScreen Victoria. I'm your host, Dee Mason. Now, across this series, we've talked about why breast screening matters, how the screening and assessment journey works, and what it takes to improve access and equity across Victoria. In this episode, we turn our attention to innovation. Not just new technology, but practical changes that improve outcomes and the experience of screening for all women. With a focus on digital enhancements, breast density reporting, and projects designed to improve the screening experience, BreastScreen Victoria has long led the way in breast cancer screening and awareness. Today, I'm joined in studio by three guests working at different points along that innovation pathway. Neill is Chief Operations and Innovation Officer at BreastScreen Victoria, and he gives us an overview of how innovation is embedded across the organisation, from service growth to digital improvements. Dr. Helen Frazer is Chief Investigator at BreastScreen Victoria and takes us inside some of the major clinical and research initiatives currently underway, including breast density reporting and the use of AI in screening. And Giles, Program Manager at Maroondah BreastScreen, joins us to talk about a trial currently underway into new screening models. Together, we'll unpack how innovation at BreastScreen Victoria is being carefully trialled, measured and implemented, always with a focus on early detection, safety and improving the screening experience. This is Behind the Screen, Episode 5, Innovations Shaping the Future of Breast Screening. Neill, Dr. Helen Frazer, Giles, thanks so much for your time and welcome to Behind the Screen. Luke, if I can throw a question to you straight up. Now, you've got the word innovation baked into your job title, so we know it's valued at BreastScreen Victoria, but what does innovation actually mean in the context of breast screening?
Yeah, sure. So I suppose innovation at BreastScreen is any new idea that we implement that adds value, solves a problem, that type of thing.
Yeah, so it's not just about medical and scientific advancements, although they're great, and I'm sure Helen and Michelle are going to share some exciting stuff with us today. But you can still be working on some pretty seemingly boring things that if they still move the needle, right, of innovation. They still impact outcomes. So what are some of the things on the agenda at the moment at BreastScreen Victoria in terms of innovation?
We've sort of grouped our innovations under three categories. We've got sort of a growth arm. So this is really about growing the program. So, we've expanded the number of clinics by, over 30% in the last few years. Doesn't sound particularly innovative, but it's innovative for what it means for the client. So you can now access an appointment where one time it might have been, 4+ weeks for an appointment. Now you can get one in less than 2 weeks. So we've got some of the best wait times that we've ever had. And that's around those weekend appointments as well. So there's, you can really book in an appointment that at a time that suits you.
Isn't it funny that something as simple as a weekend appointment, and hairdressers the world over know it to be true, women who are not prioritising their own health say, I can't get a day off work, or I've got to drop my kids to school. It's something as simple as, if we just open on the weekend, I wonder if more women will get screened.
Which is what we found. Those weekend appointments fill up really quickly, so we know they're very popular.
Indeed. What else is going on?
The growing is one arm of that innovation strategy, but we're also looking at optimizing what we're currently doing. That can be some simple things like making some enhancements to our online booking portal, making it easier than ever to book an appointment. It's things like you can now cancel your appointment by reply SMS. That's something that's pretty new that we haven't been able to do in the past.
So how does giving somebody the power to cancel an appointment help the process?
Well, I think, previously you'd have to call our contact centre, you'd have to log in online. We know people are very busy. We'd prefer you to cancel if you can't make it, so you can release that appointment for somebody else. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible that if you do need to cancel, you can do that as seamlessly as possible. And now this is something that's coming and that we're looking into. So, when you go onto our website, we want to be able to provide answers to our clients then and there. So we're looking at, web chat, but watch this space. It's still in development.
I have fought with some web bots, but is it a real person?
No web bots. We'll be looking at real people. So, yeah.
We're going to delve into a few specific innovations at BreastScreen Victoria today. What are your top three for us to address?
Look, I think we have to mention breast density. That's something that we started back in June 24. Of course, breaks, which we've got Helen in the room for, and also 3D screening, which Michelle's here to talk a little bit about.
Well, let's start with breast density, because we talked briefly about it with Dr. Speakman in episode 2 of this series. So BreastScreen Victoria introduced an innovation whereby they've started reporting to the client when they get their results, their breast density. Dr. Helen Frazer, can you explain to us what breast density is and why it's important as something that we monitor?
So breast density is a measure of the proportion of fibroglandular tissue in the breast compared to fatty tissue. And the fibroglandular tissue is white and the fatty tissue is dark or grey colour. And it's really important to be transparent about breast density in the population screening program. We've known about it for decades. We've only recently started reporting it. It's bucketed into 4 categories, which is category A, B, C, D, which ranges from being very fatty breasts right through to extremely dense breast tissue. It's very important because if women have very dense breasts and they have cancer present and they come to screening, that there is a chance that their cancer will be missed on mammographic screening, and that is really important to know for transparency, so that we can talk to women about that. We can communicate to them what they might like to do if they're category D breasts, talk to their GPs and may have a personalised risk assessment, and may even have supplemental imaging beyond mammography, for instance contrast enhanced mammography or breast MRI. So the chances of having a cancer missed in women with dense breasts is particularly high. The sensitivity of mammography diminishes in women with dense breasts, which mean that the chances of detecting a cancer if it's present are low. There is a really small increased risk of developing breast cancer in women with dense breasts, but it's actually not as much as we once had thought. So the real issue is the masking or camouflaging. And I think important to note, and we may push into this when we talk about AI, but the conventional risk tools of breast density and family histories are actually very blunt. And into the future, what we'll see is the AI image-based risk scores that give us much more accurate predictions of a woman's risk of developing breast cancer in the intermediate term.
And Luke, why is this important for us to report the breast density to the client?
It's really about building awareness and allowing our clients to make informed choices about their health. So we don't want to be sitting on information that we're not, passing on to our clients. We think it's very important that they know what we know. And, you can go to your doctor and have a conversation around what supplemental screening might be appropriate. Mm-hmm. Breast screening is still the best thing for you despite what your breast density might be. It's still really important that you're having those regular breast screens.
Do you have any data on the percentage of people that are following up with the GP and then coming back?
We don't at the moment. It's definitely something that's of interest, and we are looking at ways that we might be able to link data with Medicare and other things to actually get some of that. But at the moment, we're not sure. We have a couple of metrics. We have some client satisfaction data that we collect. So we've been doing a survey of everyone who's been getting their results just to make sure that it's not causing too much angst out in the community. But we're also got some detailed dashboards around, how many of our clients do have dense breasts, and we can use that to inform future changes in the program.
Can you explain to us what's happening with the decision with My Health Record?
Yeah, so we've recently integrated with My Health Record. So that means clients can upload their result to My Health Record. Now we're asking every client when they are booking with us whether they would like to, opt in or opt out of that. So it's absolutely a client choice. But what that means is now that clients, if they do opt in, can now access their breast screen result in My Health Record. My Health Record is an Australian initiative, so it's available to GPs in Victoria, interstate.
So when did that come into effect?
In July 2025.
And do you have an opt-in rate?
We have an opt-out rate, and it's about 15% at the moment. So,
okay.
But it's something we're closely monitoring. It's still early days of the project, so we'll keep monitoring that. I think now your GP has access to your breast screen result more easily than they may have in the past. So we've always sent results to GPs if you nominate one, but now that the GP can access that through My Health Record as well.
A lot of people are genuinely nervous about the amount of data that's collected on them because it could affect their future life.
Yeah, and they're legitimate concerns. I think that's why it's so important that legislation needs to keep up with these type of advancements to make sure people aren't discriminated against for something that they can't control a lot of the time.
Dr. Helen Frazer, you've got a program called Breaks. I want you to tell us about where the idea came from and, in a nutshell, what it is in the breast cancer space.
So I've been in breast cancer screening for 25 years, and I'm really passionate about using technology to improve women's health outcomes. And over the course of my 25 years, I've worked deeply in cancer screening and become very aware of the challenges in the current program. So the challenges are around the accuracy, the woman's experience of screening, and the efficiency. But before I dive into a few of those, Dee, for you, it's important to note that breast cancer, as we all know, is the most common cancer diagnosed in women. And we know that statistic, it's very sobering, about 1 in 7 women will develop breast cancer during the course of their lifetime. So we're talking about a major public health program, and we're very fortunate in Australia, we're one of 22 countries, to have a national population screening program, and that's afforded us an incredible data set, which is also part of the genesis of this work. So breast cancer screening is based on the premise early detection saves lives, and the way I look at it is if every cancer is detected early, every life can be saved, and that's pretty powerful. So the focus is always on early detection, and it is a successful public health initiative. However, it's 35 years old, and it's quite little changed, and that leads us to the challenges: accuracy, women's experience and efficiency. So with regards to accuracy, we call back too many women unnecessarily with an indication for cancer, subsequently determined to not have cancer. And also we have a situation where women have a normal screening mammogram, and in the interval they develop a breast lump and they have a cancer detected. And these are the false negatives or interval cancers. So we're always looking for ways that we can improve on the accuracy of the program. With regard to experience, it's predominantly one size fits all. It is not personalised to a woman's individual risk of developing breast cancer, and that is where we need to head. And also in the modern times, our service standards, I think, are compliant with what's expected of us, but they're relatively slow, up to 14 days to get an all-clear result. No one likes to wait 14 days for anything.
So can you explain to me how they're read currently?
Of course, yep. So since the program's inception, we've had a multi-reader model, and that means that every mammogram, every mammographic image is read by 2 radiologists, independent of each other, blinded, and if they agree, that's good. If they disagree, it goes to a third consensus review, which actually will make the final decision. That's the third reader. So you can see that it's a really resource and time-intensive process, and that's what builds in those 14 days.
Do you know the data on how often they concur and how often they have to call in the third umpire?
Yes. So the majority concur. It's important to also note that because we're screening well women, the incidence of cancer is low, and 95% of all that we do is normal. So we find that the radiologists reading the images concur anywhere between 90 and 95%, and the rest of the cases go through to an arbitration reading.
Yes,
the third umpire.
Who is currently a human.
That's exactly right, and will remain a human too. But the third bucket of challenges in screening are the efficiency. So we have an ageing population, an increasing incidence of breast cancer, increasing demand for our services, and the College of Radiologists has predicted in 3 to 5 years, not enough radiologists to meet demand. And it's also a very expensive program to administer, and we have rising costs.
What an extraordinary time to be an expert in the area of artificial intelligence, because you're getting this rolled out at the same time that we're all just getting our chat GPTs on and realising just how limited generative AI is. So can you explain to us, Helen, the different types of AI and why my chat GPT isn't going to be relied on to get involved in breast screening?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great point, Dee. I think it's really important because people automatically assume that we're perhaps using generative AI or chat GPT type products. Ultimately, we will use those types of products, but at the moment we're using very narrow AI, predictive AI, and it really is just maths, not magic. It's very important that our clients do understand that we're using image classification algorithms, and it's not the generative AI that everyone gets concerned about. We hear how it confabulates or hallucinates. We hear about errors of omission in generative AI, ChatGPT. But what we're doing is really very different. Image classification algorithms that have been taught on extremely high quality, grounded breast cancer screening data sets to detect the features of cancer on mammography.
So the data sets that you have access to, is it just Victorian well women over a period of 35 years? Have you digitised old film data?
The data that the AI has been trained on is digital mammography.
What year did that come in?
We've got about 10 years of data, but we had a hybrid model of film screen, the old X-rays you'd hold up to the view box, and digital mammography since around about 2012, 2013, I think. Yeah.
So just with my non-science brain, I think what you're saying is we looked at all the scans that have ever been taken, say, right? And we can't identify what humans they're from. So we have access to that data because it's not identifiable to any client. So we've looked at all of that over time and said, oh, I know the outcome for this woman. She developed a breast cancer between screen 4 and 5 that developed.
Yes.
So this predictive AI can go in and look at it all and say, I can see a pattern that perhaps radiographers couldn't see, because I can look at all the things that I'm not just looking for this one thing. I'm looking at all of this breast tissue over time, and I can predict that might happen here. So we can actually say, based on what we know that we didn't even know we knew,
You sure you didn't study science, Dee? So that's basically the crux of it, really, isn't it? The only thing to add, which I think is really relevant and which makes the breast cancer use case for AI extremely compelling, is that we have fully grounded data sets, and I'll just explain that because it's really relevant. So we know the women that have breast cancer, and we know that from surgical histopathology when the cancer's taken out. We also know the women that had the interval cancer, the false negative diagnosed, because it's reported to the cancer registry and it then comes back to us at BreastScreen Victoria. And of course we know those true normals, those women that did not have cancer. And we know the false positives. We know those women that were recalled unnecessarily to assessment with an indication of breast cancer but subsequently didn't have cancer. So we've got the whole 2x2 or the confusion matrix, and that is incredibly unique in medical imaging. In fact, there's probably no other use case. If you look at chest x-rays or brain CTs where there's a lot of AI activity, the breast cancer use case has these very strongly grounded and also longitudinal data sets, which is absolutely what you need to build very highly accurate AI tools for decisioning and detection and risk.
So what you're saying, Helen, is that it's a data nerd's dream.
It's a data nerd's dream. I was fortunate to spend 3 months as a visiting scholar at one of the US universities, and they don't have a national population screening program,
Right.
and they were just salivating over this data.
Is it possible for a country with a similar demography, with a similar economics status, with a similar hospital network, can they borrow our data sets and make some assumptions about the data?
No. So we
can't have our data.
We cannot share any data offshore.
Your colleague, Dr. Speakman, said, you've got Helen in at episode 5. Can you ask her at what point we're going to be able to excise small cancers at the point of mammography or testing? So it is on the cards and in the future.
Yes, and even AI aside, it is actually being used in, I think the UK have a very involved program of vacuum biopsy excision of very small cancers, because they don't have the actual capacity to do all those surgeries in the NHS.
I mean, we just want to use the term one-stop shop, don't we, Luke?
We do. I think importantly for our clients, though, implementation of breaks or AI still has the doctor really at the centre of that decision making. So we still have the doctors doing all of those third or arbitration reads that we mentioned. They're doing all of our primary reads. So this is really just bringing the AI into replacing one of those primary readers.
So at the moment, and you've explained it very, very well, you've got two human readers, and if they concur, all well and good, and if there's some discrepancy, they go to a third
Human,
arbitrator,
yes.
a third human.
Doctor, yeah.
But what's going to happen under your proposal, based on these findings, are we going to be able to knock out one of the humans?
So we started a randomised controlled trial in December 2025, and the protocol for that trial is one arm is the control group, which is business as usual, the multi-reader model that we've been discussing, and the other arm is the intervention group. And in that group, the only thing that changes, so the workflow is exactly the same, the woman experience is exactly the same, having her mammogram taken, etc. But in that group, the AI reader, the breaks reader, substitutes the second reading radiologist, and then the third reader remains a radiologist or a human. So there's a human in charge of every decision, and that is a much lower ethical bar when we went through the whole ethics process. Ultimately, it will look different. That's my perspective. Ultimately, there will be more autonomous AI once we get that trust and get the evidence for AI in screening, because that's a very compelling use case, because what we do know is AI is especially good at determining normal. So there's an opportunity for another scenario, another use case, which is, we call it the band pass. And in that scenario, the AI rules out all the completely normal mammograms, 60-70% of all of the work, and rules in all of those definitely malignant mammograms. And it's the human creativity and sort of EQ almost, or intellect, that actually examines that middle band.
Yes.
So that you can see that's a very compelling, really reduces the workforce or the workload that we need for that particular instance. But that is a much higher ethical hurdle.
Yeah, and I think we'll touch back on that when we're talking with Michelle about 3D mammography, because that's a really good tie-in. Luke was talking earlier about the opt-in or opt-out of data. Can clients opt out of this? Certainly the trial, but going forward?
So certainly for the trial, which is where we are at the moment, Dee. So yes, we do have an opt-out consent process, which is part of what we need to have for a randomised controlled trial. And that's going to be really important for us to examine because that's an unknown. We really don't know how many women will actually opt out. Our sense is that the opt-out rate should be relatively low, but that's understudied and something that we'll get some really rich information on to really understand what women's perspectives are of AI and how they like or think about a computer reading their mammogram.
But I think a really interesting selling point for ongoing, consistent screening is that you're actually giving back to a data bank of information that is invaluable going forward. And I think that get that on a T-shirt.
Yes.
Helen Frazer, with your, I've written it down, it's maths, not magic.
Next time we meet again, Dee, I'll have it on.
Now, risk stratified screening is an innovation you're also working on. Can you explain to us what that is and the potential that has to improve the screening program?
Yeah, so that's the future. You know, as I've mentioned, we've talked a bit about being a one-size-fits-all program. So moving to risk-based stratification or personalised screening, which is unique to every individual's unique risk of breast cancer. We know that we're not one size fits all, is where we really want to head so that we can, really supercharge the reduction in deaths from breast cancer through early detection.
So I'm guessing how that would work would be that I would give more information about my personal situation, my risk factors, not just genetically, but would it go so far as lifestyle factors? How would that work?
So look, I mean, we do have in our registration form some of the variables that you've talked about, but the thing that I'd like to highlight is that what we are learning is that those variables are actually pretty blunt. They're all we've got at the moment, conventional risk tools, questionnaires, breast density, etc. But what we're all learning, and certainly in the AI space, is that the image classification algorithms are actually very, very accurate predictors of future risk of breast cancer. So very good at detecting cancer at the time, which is the randomised controlled trial, which is the detection algorithm. But the algorithm can also be transformed to be a very good predictor of intermediate risk of breast cancer for those women that don't have cancer at the time. And that's the moonshot. That really gives us that ability to determine a woman's risk if they don't have cancer at the time, and then really almost give them a personalised prescription of what their screening journey might look like. So what the interval of screening is like, and also what modality might be most suitable for them.
Could you predict and then say to somebody, well, you need to be on 6-monthly screening? Or could you change the frequency? Or could you say to somebody, you could probably step back to 5-yearly screening?
Yes, that's the vision. Certainly we could say someone might come in a year's time, or someone might actually a very tiny proportion, those at the uppermost risk of cancer, so in keeping and fitting with the BreastScreen funding envelopes, for instance, and making sure the harms, the benefits and costs stack up, those women may need really intensive screening with a contrast study, for instance, contrast enhanced mammography or breast MRI. The thing about the AI risk scores that's really exciting is, unlike those conventional tools we've talked about that like family questionnaire might assign a lifetime risk, the AI scores are calculated every 2 years and updated when a woman comes to screening. They're automated. They're not burdensome. You don't have to fill out a family history questionnaire, etc. And obviously they're much more accurate. The gradient of change between mammograms is very insightful. How much a score changes over time, and scores can diminish as well. So it's fully automated, gets updated every 2 years, and we can give people a personalised screening prescription. A questionnaire gives a lifetime risk, say 20%. That's a lot of burden to carry for your life, whereas an intermediate risk, I think, is a lot more help.
You're talking about making a bespoke diagnostic tool, and as soon as you use the word bespoke, it adds dollars an hour, doesn't it? Just the amount of time and extra admin around that is interesting. So I love it that the science is there, but how applicable is it to the model that we've currently got?
Yeah, so that's really something that we'll look at closely, a whole health economic analysis, that's really important. And, how does it impact workflows, and what do women think of the experience? What do our radiologists think of it? So it's not just the whiz-bang algorithm that's going to do this and that. There's a whole body of research, and we have a multidisciplinary team that are undertaking that work, and also our staff in at BreastScreen Victoria, because it's not just about the algorithm. It's really, it's got to make sense on all fronts.
BreastScreen Victoria invites women and trans and gender diverse people aged from 50 to 74 without breast symptoms to have a free 10-minute breast screen every 2 years. Breast screens with us are performed by a woman radiographer and don't require a doctor's referral. With over 50 clinics and 2 mobile screening services across the state, you can choose a clinic and a time that's convenient for you. Book at breastscreen.org.au or call 1320 50. Well, now this feels like the perfect time to bring Michelle Giles into the conversation on innovation in breast screening. Michelle's the program manager at Maroondah BreastScreen. And Michelle, you're working on some pretty interesting research yourself involving tomosynthesis, which is affectionately referred to as the TOMO program or the TOMO program. Firstly, what is tomosynthesis and how are you planning to use it to innovate within the breast screening program?
So it's a 3D mammogram. So currently in the BreastScreen program, we use 3D mammography at assessment. So if a client gets recalled back after her screening mammogram, the first step at assessment is a 3D mammogram. Research shows that 3D mammogram can detect more cancer, particularly in very dense breasts. So what we're trying to do is bring that technology into the screening program. So when a client comes in for their screen, we're offering them a 3D mammogram.
So, of course, and we know this from because we spoke to Dr. Speakman in episode 2 when we talked about the assessment journey. He said that we already have 3D mammography, but that's only at the point when somebody's called back, so for further research. So why, as a layman, I would want to know why we don't do that right up front.
So Dr. Frazer talked earlier about accuracy, and that is why we're looking at using it. But in our pilot study, when we offered clients 3D mammography for 4 views, we found it took 4 times as long to read. Now, screening program is population-based, so it's large numbers. So it's not feasible to be offering all clients 3D mammography when they walk in the door. So what we're trying to do is work out the best clients to offer 3D mammography, so who would benefit from it most. So we've moved on now to a new model. It's a world-first trial using a hybrid screening model, and that's a 3D view from the side and a 2D view from the top. And we've just analysed our first 5,000 clients with the hybrid mammography. And what we've found at the moment is this hybrid model for our research has shown that we can still have that increase in cancer detection. And we found in our first study, in our sub-analysis, that was with clients with very dense breasts. With our new study, with the hybrid model, we've found that we can keep up the increased cancer detection, but it's only doubling the reading. Mm-hmm. So that's making it more feasible.
And it's clever science because you said, let's go and scan everything 3D, and you realise that that's giving us great results, but it's costing too much and taking too long to read. So you halved the new science, you halved the amount of images you're taking, but it didn't halve the efficacy.
Yes, that's right. So exactly, we halved the number of 3D images we were taking, so it's halved the time it takes the radiologist to read it. But with the side view, they're still able to find the additional cancers.
What percentage of women are in the C to D category of breast density?
We know that 30% of our clients at screen are in the category of C to D.
And they're the ones that we know that a 2D mammography is not as efficient at. So is it possible going forward, and perhaps after that's what this trial's about, that we prioritise the risk assessment of women with a C and D category of breast tissue, of breast density, and then give them straight up front 3D mammography?
Absolutely. That is what we're looking at in this trial, is being able to offer clients in that high-risk category with very dense breasts, possibly family history as well, being able to offer them 3D screening up front.
So going forward, and I know we've just spoken to Dr. Frazer about the BREAKS project, the AI program, and we're talking to you now about your TOMO program. Surely the two of you should get together and talk about how, obviously you need Helen and she needs breast screens.
I think we probably need Helen more. Absolutely. Look, we're already talking, and absolutely that's the way forward is, when you've got a technology like 3D mammography, which is known to detect more breast cancers, and it's known to take longer to read. The way to put that into a breast screening program where it's a population-based program, you have large numbers, is to use AI. That is the way forward.
I know that, Helen, you're probably going to say that's not the way we talk about AI, but to my layman's head, I'm like, well, you've trained your AI algorithm, your model, on 2D mammography. Is it a new bit of magic math to train it to do the 3D?
Yeah, I think Michelle's explained it absolutely brilliantly. There is a coming together of both the projects, and I think that's one of the fantastic things about BreastScreen Victoria. There are lots of projects going on, and we are seeing some convergence, which is fantastic, to sort of see that to have progressed so far through the translational journey that we're getting there. as Michelle also pointed out, we do need to build the evidence. So we're building the evidence for AI on 2D in screening, and then Michelle and team are building the evidence for tomosynthesis without AI. We do need that sort of groundbreaking research initially. In terms of bringing them together, that's probably the easy part. For AI that's trained on 2D, it's just fine-tuning on a 3D mammogram. So it's still the same technology. It's mammography, it's a breast X-ray. So we'll just be fine-tuning the 2D models on 3D and then integrating them into the pathway, just like what we've done with the 2D system. So that's not going to be the tricky part, we don't think. We've just got to get that basic evidence first that tomo in screening is great and AI in screening is great.
So you're doing 20,000 new 3D mammography tests, and you will have them read by presumably 3 humans, or 2 as required and then 1 extra?
Yep, that's right. So we have so far recruited or analysed 5,000. We've recruited 13,000. So we're well on our way to the 20,000. And we screen about approximately 10,000 a year. We've got an opt-in rate of 95%. So clients are really wanting to be part of the study. They're really keen.
What's not to love about the having more images and more chance of detecting cancer in a denser breast?
Absolutely.
So look, BreastScreen Victoria is obviously dedicated to exploring innovation and innovating in any way we can in the field, obviously, but also in terms of how BreastScreen Victoria provides the service. How is that structured into the organisation? You have an innovation strategy?
We do, yeah, with 3 pillars. It's around growing the program, optimising what we're doing, and implementing new technology and research, really proven, trusted technology and research.
I don't think people appreciate that what you're working on is, world-leading science, groundbreaking stuff, amazing amounts of trials going on out there, and this is just the tip of the iceberg.
The analogy I like to use is sort of the duck. So for our clients, we're just a very, floating above the water, but we're madly pedaling underneath. So,
yes,
yeah.
Maybe not even madly, just frantically.
We're busily pedaling underneath.
I think today's episode, we really truly have taken a peek behind the screen. It's extraordinary. Thank you all so much for coming along and sharing. Will you please come back and let us know how all those trials have panned out?
Love to.
Love to. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Massive thanks to my guests today, to Luke Neill, Chief Operations and Innovation Officer at BreastScreen Victoria, Dr. Helen Frazer, Chief Investigator at BreastScreen Victoria, and Michelle Giles, Program Manager at Maroondah BreastScreen. Behind the Screen is available on podcast platforms and via breastscreen.org.au/podcast from February 2026. Come and join the conversation on Instagram and Facebook. Make sure to like, follow and subscribe so you'll be notified weekly when each episode drops. And if you know someone who's curious about breast screening or could really benefit from these conversations, feel free to share. Thanks so much for listening, and please tune in for the next episode of Behind the Screen. It's our final episode in this series. I'll be sitting down for a one-on-one chat with BreastScreen Victoria's CEO, Rita Butera. We'll be recapping on these last 5 episodes and looking to the future. In episode 6, what's next for BreastScreen Victoria?